that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I want to hope gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 404th edition of Energy Week with George Harvey and the astonishing Tom Fennell, who happens to be right here in the flesh. Take a bow, Tom. Okay?
Yeah.
We start off because we need to, asking for donations for Brattleboro Community Television, BCTV. And if you want to make a donation, which somebody's going to have to do because if BCTV stops working, well, you won't be able to hear us anymore. You go to BrattleboroTV.org and go to the upper right region of the screen. You'll see an orange box that says Donate. Click on that. Go down to choose PayPal or a credit card, and then click on that and put in an amount of money. And then below that, there's a place where you can put in comments and put in a comment saying this is for Energy Week, the Energy Week TV show with George Harvey and Tom Fennell. So this show, as always, starts with material from a week earlier, which is January 28th, and it runs up to yesterday, which was the 3rd of February. The material comes from my blog, which is geoharvey.com, geoharvey.com. We use a script. You can go to the blog. You can go to the script, which is something you can download where you find the recording of this show.
And the script has links to the source of some of the stuff we discuss. Some of which is very well worth looking up.
As does the blog itself. So we're going to start on the 28th of January, and we have a picture of a man who looks an awful lot like Joe Biden.
He's a good faker.
He's a good faker. Well, he's got a mask. I don't know what to say about that.
Yeah, it's hard to tell.
You know, you remember Breakfast at Tiffany's, the TV show? In those days. Yeah, I remember somebody commenting in those days that there was an ordinance in New York City saying you were not allowed to wear a mask on the streets.
That's interesting.
Maybe
I guess the cops are pretty busy at Halloween.
I don't know. I really don't know. Anyway, here is the President of the United States, and we have a piece from CNN. And what do you have for a title, Tom?
Biden signed 2 executive orders and a memorandum Wednesday. Here's what they do.
Yeah, President Joe Biden issued an executive order directing a number of actions on the climate crisis and an executive order establishing a council of advisors on science and technology. In addition, he issued a memorandum designed to ensure scientific integrity. And I know you've got something to say about this, Tom.
Well, he signed executive actions to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord, which is good, and cancel the Keystone XL pipeline, which is also good.
Yeah.
And he also directed agencies to review and reverse more than 100 Trump administration actions on the environment.
Yes.
And he also called on Congress to eliminate subsidies on fossil fuels.
Yes.
Now, why fossil fuels need subsidies is beyond me.
Well, and there's also a certain amount of what can I call it, noise, saying that there is no such thing as subsidies on fossil fuels. At least that's what the people in the fossil fuels industry like everybody to believe. But you talk every once in a while, Tom, about the idea that an oil company would be compensated because it runs out of oil at a well on a site that...
The oil depletion allowance.
What can you say? Oh, my gosh. Anyway, do you have more on that, Tom, or should we go on?
No, I'm already on the next item.
Are you really? Okay. Well, I might as well bring up the photograph, which is a
picture of a large array.
There it is. That is an amazingly large array. This is from PV Magazine Australia, and it's about something that we've talked about a bit. What do you got for a title, Tom?
Major milestone for the world's biggest solar project.
Yeah,
I think that's changed already.
You think what?
That it's no longer the world's biggest solar project.
Well, it might not be. Plans to develop a 10-gigawatt solar farm to export electricity to Singapore through a submarine transmission cable continue to gather steam. The Northern Territory government and Sun Cable signed the project development agreement. The project will also have 30 gigawatts of storage. And there's more than one of these things. There's a huge one in Western Australia that we talked about earlier that they decided.
I think there's 3 of these going on.
Yeah, it's just the one in Western Australia. They decided against the submarine transmission link, and what they decided to do was to manufacture hydrogen and ship that instead. But I mean,
link is 2,500 miles.
This is not small. It's 10 gigawatts, and even allowing for the fact that solar power has a fairly low capacity factor, that's more than a couple big nuclear power plants. And what they're doing is just supplying this renewable electricity to Singapore. That's what they're planning on doing. Singapore can supply some of its own power, but Singapore is not exactly big, and it has a lot of people.
It's a city-state.
It's a city-state, yeah. Yes, indeed. So do you have more on that, Tom, or should we go on?
Well, it's estimated that the project will export $1 billion worth of solar electricity each year, commencing in 2027. $1 billion a year.
My goodness, that's a lot. Yeah.
Once you get over $100, my mind shuts.
Yeah, well, I've read that the average person really can't deal with numbers very well if they're above 7. But what can I say? I can tell you, I can picture 7 items together.
I can picture 10. I look at my hands.
Oh, yeah, there you go. When I try to picture 11, the only way I can do it is to look at my hands and imagine myself having one extra finger. Anyway, you got more on that?
No, I don't.
No, you don't. Well, let's take a look at what's next. Tesla energy storage. How about that?
These are Tesla Megapacks.
Yeah, these are Tesla Megapacks with corn and those look like wind turbines in the background.
Is that what they are?
Yeah, I think it is. This is from CleanTechnica. What do you got for a title?
Tesla apostrophe S had 83% increase in energy storage deployments in 2020.
In its most recent earnings report, Tesla noted that its energy storage deployments grew from 2019 to 2020. Quote, for the first time, our total battery deployments surpassed 3 gigawatt hours in a single year, which is an 83% increase compared to the year before. That's
a significant amount.
It is, and bear in mind here, we're talking about capacity for storage, not an amount of electricity. So 3 gigawatt hours is extremely big. This is the comparison of storage capacity versus electricity is like comparing a tank truck with a gallon of water.
Well, a little quick takeaway here. The increase comes from the demand for Tesla's Megapack, which they describe as a utility-scale storage product.
Yeah, and I have to apologize because I just hit the wrong keys on the computer, so people watching the film might have seen a bunch of visual things go by. I'm trying to handle a telephone, a microphone, and 2 computers at the same time. And it's a little worse than trying to walk and chew gum at the same time. So do you have more on the Tesla Megapack?
No, let's move on to Friday, January 29th.
Okay, I'll see if I can get that up without destroying something. This is Friday, January 29th. We have a picture of an offshore wind farm, which is from Ørsted. And we have an item from Renews.
And it says renewable surge past fossil fuels in the UK energy mix.
In the UK, renewables resources overtook fossil fuels as the main source of electricity in 2020.
That's
new
interesting.
Analysis, isn't it? Yeah, this is according to new analysis by climate and energy think tank called Ember. A record 42% of the UK's electricity was generated by renewables in 2020 compared to 41% by fossil fuels. And that change is almost certainly going to continue into the future.
Absolutely. There's no way I'd bet against that.
Yeah, there's no way this can, they're constantly putting in increased amounts of renewable energy.
As I'm fond of saying, it's the economy, stupid.
It's the economy. Well, it's also because people are worried about climate change. But, and this picture, by the way, wind turbines, and that looks like a substation on the left.
I think that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, but, if you look at this, and you look at that substation compared to the horizon and the wind turbine, which is the leftmost of those three compared to the horizon, it looks like they're almost the same distance from the observer. That substation has got probably 6 stories of places where people can walk and live and stuff like that. And it's big, but the wind turbine is really big. So
I think we can see vaguely in the background some more wind turbines.
Oh, I'm having a terrible time with these computers. I'm sorry. I'm switching images. Brian might be able to edit them out, but yes, we have another wind turbine in the background, and I don't know what else is going on. Okay, should we go on, Tom?
Well, a quick takeaway. A quarter of this was generated by wind.
Yes.
Coal power is already near zero. Fossil gas sunk to a 5-year low. Yes. And the analysis also found that renewables overtook fossil fuels in the entire EU in 2020.
Yes. Well,
this is the future, folks.
This is the future, and we've been seeing more and more of this, and we will see more and more of this as we go on with the show. There's some really interesting stuff going on. The end of fossil fuels is in fact upon us, and we will be seeing that soon. And
it's basically due to economics.
It's a lot of it, is due to economics. Okay, I'm going to go to the next picture.
Yeah, we got a nice picture of somebody charging a Chevrolet.
Charging a Chevrolet. You want to know why we're switching away from fossil fuels? Well, this is going to tell you a little bit more about how fast that's going to happen. It's an item from CNN.
GM looks to sell only emission-free vehicles by 2035.
Yeah. General Motors.
No combustions, guys.
Yeah. General Motors said it plans to be carbon neutral by 2040 in its global operations and hopes to offer only zero-emissions vehicles by 2035. GM had previously announced that it was working toward an all-electric future in quotes, it's their term, but it had not set any target date for achieving that goal. This really, I think this is kind of stunning news. This is a big car manufacturer. Traditionally, it was always the biggest American car manufacturer, and all of a sudden it's saying, we're not going to build, engines that eat gasoline anymore.
Well, they sort of have been asleep, and it looks like they're waking up.
Yeah, and there was an item in the news today, and we'll talk about it next week, where GM is they have a Super Bowl ad that has Will Ferrell in it, and it's considered to be comical. Of course, we're going to be looking at it as a retrospect next week, but nevertheless, General Motors is apparently getting very, very interested in selling electric cars. And when you consider what's going on with Tesla, it's hardly a surprise. We will be talking about Tesla again.
Absolutely.
And, General Motors
they're creating a whole new world.
Yeah, General Motors is under very, very tough competition from Tesla. And
Absolutely.
Tesla doesn't sell anywhere near as many cars as General Motors, but Tesla has got an advantage because it has this background and it's growing, where General Motors is under pressure. It's got old factories. It's got to get itself out from under. And this is something that's typical of what's going on in the United States. Our traditional car companies are way behind what's going on in the rest of the world.
Well, like I said, they've been asleep. They're starting to wake up.
They have been asleep, yes. And, okay, are we done with that, Tom?
Yeah, let's move on here. This is kind of scary.
We have a picture
Earth is the hottest it's been in 12,000 years.
Yeah. Earth is, the study published in the journal Nature this week revealed that the planet is hotter now than it's been for at least 12,000 years, and very well may be warmer than at any point in the last 125,000 years. The study based on much improved models, which explains past trends. This was interesting because it gives you a little bit of a picture into how they get that information.
It is an interesting article. It's kind of heavy, but if you got the time, it's well worth reading.
That article is from a publication called MIC, M-I-C.
Yep.
But it was the journal Nature. There were other publications that came up with that.
They copy it.
Yeah,
they pick it up.
and they pick it up, and it is when you say that it's hotter than it's been for 12,000 years, yes, it is scary. I agree with you, Tom, but it's also not very surprising.
No, it isn't really.
Yeah.
I got a couple of quick takeaways here. The planet has been warming since the last ice age affected Earth, the dawn of the so-called age of man.
Yes.
As the planet warmed, it gave way to new agricultural developments. Humans started manipulating the land in order to produce food. Eventually, it led to industrialization, which led to humans pumping an inordinate amount of greenhouse gas into the atmosphere, which led to climate change.
Yeah, and what we have
right
to do
there.
is we have to undo what people have been doing for the last 10,000 years.
And that hurts. You don't want to do it.
Well, we're going to do it, but
we don't want to.
If we decide we're going to do it, I don't think it's going to hurt all that much doing it. The climate will continue to change for a little bit, and we will have for a little bit. It will continue to get worse for a while. Let me put it that way, and then we'll have to compensate for that, and also deal with the changes that continue. Like melting ice is going to raise the sea levels, and eventually that'll have an effect on a lot of people. A lot of people are going to have to move, I'm afraid.
I think we're going to be talking about that in a little while.
Yeah. Okay, are we done with that one, Tom?
Island nations, they're scared. They're seeing their entire nation disappearing.
There are going to be entire nations that disappear. There's no question about it, based on the data that we have. And there may be states that disappear. You know, the outlook for the entire state of Florida is not all that good. And
Florida doesn't have a lot of high land, that's for sure.
Yeah, and what happens? We've already got climate refugees inside of Miami. People are moving away from the beachfront property and toward, what is it called, Tom? We've talked about it in a bunch of places.
Yeah, I can't remember the word.
Haiti?
But the water in that area is coming up from underneath.
Yes.
It's percolating through the sand.
Yeah, you cannot build a barrier to keep it out. So they're in trouble. And things. And
Mar-a-Lago is in trouble.
Mar-a-Lago's in trouble. Yeah, well. So should we go on?
Yeah, we got a nice picture of an oil platform here.
Yes, we do. And this is Saturday, January 30th. There's actually a couple of platforms in the background. In the
background, yep.
There may be as many as 4. I don't know, but there's at least 2. And that picture comes from NAFTA. And I don't know. The only thing that I could find that could be was NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. I don't know that they would have produced this, but anyway, that's where it came from.
Okay.
This item is from CleanTechnica, and this was one of the ones that I found kind of stunning. What do you have for a title, Tom?
Standard & Poor's warns oil majors a downgrade is coming within weeks.
Yeah, according to The Guardian, the well-known financial ratings company Standard & Poor's, which is also abbreviated S&P, has warned 13 of the largest oil and gas companies in the world that it may downgrade their credit rating within weeks because of an increasing competition from renewable energy. And
that's not good news for these companies.
Not good.
Sure.
Well, they're in trouble, and it's just going to get worse.
It's interesting that British Petroleum is not one of them.
British Petroleum has been investing in other things.
They have awakened.
Yeah, and there was an article that appeared, I think, yesterday. I didn't include it, I don't think, because it was just too detailed. But it basically said there's a huge difference between American oil companies and oil companies in the rest of the world. And the oil companies in the rest of the world are apparently either starting to move or they have already moved substantially toward renewable energy. The ones in the United States are resisting. And the result of that is that the ones in the United States are going to very likely run into a great deal of difficulty in the not very distant future.
Well, what the article says, a lower credit rating makes it harder for companies to borrow money.
Yeah, and as I said, if you look at what happened in the last 4 years, with Donald Trump in office, and I again don't want to get into politics, but you just look at that that period of time, the Dow Jones Oil and Gas Index declined by 50% during that presidency, and as the Dow Jones Industrial Average was going up, the oil and gas index basically was just puttering along. When the Dow Jones Industrial Average went down 30% because of the COVID pandemic, the oil and gas index dropped 50%. And then as the Dow Jones Industrial Average went into, recovered and went into record territory, the oil and gas index did not recover, and now it's down 50%. That is an explanation of what investors think of the future of oil and gas. And when you consider, here we've got a major Standard & Poor's. Actually, Standard & Poor's is the source of the Dow Jones Oil and Gas Index and so forth.
That's what they do.
They're saying this is not going to get better; it's going to get worse.
Yeah.
And I think there really is no other way of looking at this. And what I mean is, there's no other way of looking at it that makes sense than to believe that oil and gas has a very limited future. And
I think that's becoming pretty evident now. I mean, solar has been plummeting, and wind has been going down not quite as rapidly, but it's been going down too. The wind turbines are getting bigger. The solar installations are getting bigger, and there's two kinds of solar. There's solar thermal and solar photovoltaic, and they're both growing.
They're both growing, yeah. You said that they were plummeting. I think that you meant that they were growing fast. It's okay, Tom. Don't worry about it. Well, basically,
oil and gas has been. Well, forget it.
Okay.
Let's move on.
Let's move on. That's okay. No problem. Here is a
nice picture of a hydrogen generator. High school chemistry made large.
Yes, indeed. And this item is from CleanTechnica, and this I found really interesting.
This is interesting. This is the hydrogen generator that will power the Extreme E electric off-road racers. And this is Formula E, guys. Electric cars running.
Yeah, the upcoming Extreme E off-road series for electric race cars has brought up questions about where the fuel would come from in remote deserts and jungles. Extreme E just revealed the portable hydrogen-powered generator to make the fuel, and there you're looking at it. And the thing that I find really interesting about this is that this thing could probably be used anywhere. And
not probably, definitely.
Yeah, and that
anywhere you got a supply of electricity, you got a supply of hydrogen.
Yeah, and the only other thing that you need is water. but the amount of hydrogen that you get out of water is just incredibly big, so you don't need a big water supply.
Absolutely.
And, there it is. And hydrogen has got a lot of downsides as a fuel, but who knows where it's going to go?
Well, when you burn hydrogen, you only get water.
Yeah, you just get water. It's hard to store. It goes through things like steel.
A lot of that has been dealt with.
Yeah, a lot of it has been. And when you're talking about hydrogen, you're talking about something that's extremely reactive. But at the same time, as you said, Tom, you burn it, you get water. You don't get soot, you don't get carbon monoxide, you don't get toxic chemicals. This is, the particulates. You're talking about droplets of water. If you're talking, it's not going to hurt you. So it's what's been in nature for years and years and years.
In addition to what they're talking about using off-road electric races, a container-based fuel cell generator could provide emissions-free electrical support to damaged power grids in hurricane-swept coastal towns, like we just saw last year.
Yeah, and this almost looks like
power to future humanitarian efforts in remote areas. They could bring one of these things in.
Yeah, it looks like you could put these things into shipping containers and move them all over
pretty closely to it. That's not a shipping container, but it certainly could be.
Yeah. Okay, have we finished that one?
Yeah, I think we have. We've got an interesting car to look at.
That's kind of a car. It's kind of a bicycle. It's a four-wheeled bicycle sort of thing. And this is
they call it a car e-bike.
A car-e-bike. That's correct. Yes. So what do you have?
I'll give you the title. Meet City Hue, the four-wheeled electric car e-bike that can carry passengers and cargo.
Yeah, the City Hue has another approach to micro-mobility. It's a four-wheeled enclosed electric car-e-bike with a range of up to 43 to 62 miles, which is 70 to 100 kilometers, per charge, and a 5-hour charge time. It can carry 2 adults, or 1 adult and 2 kids, and or cargo. And, one of the things that I find interesting about this is that it's a bit more advanced than things that we've seen in the past. And I don't think that this is going to replace the car that a person, who lives out in the countryside would drive to town with. But when you think about living in a place like New York City or Boston, it would be a whole lot easier to negotiate what's going on there with these.
Oh, absolutely! If you could ban automobiles from 14th Street down in Manhattan and use these things, it would open up all of Wall Street for parking.
Yeah, when I was in college, I went to Columbia, and while I was at Columbia, there was a thing on the news that said that somebody had tested the air on Wall Street and had found that the carbon monoxide level was high enough that a person on Wall Street really should be wearing a mask to prevent it. But
that was a while ago.
Yeah, this was the kicker on this is they also tested the oxygen level, and they said the oxygen level was low enough that wearing a mask would be illegal.
No kidding.
Just from the oxygen level. So there was no alternative for safely negotiating the streets on Wall Street except to wear an air pack, so that it would be like wearing a scuba diver's gear.
I was just going to say scuba, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like all of a sudden I knew why I was getting bad grades.
I wondered why. Well, there's a quick takeaway here. They're talking about this vehicle. It's a small electric vehicle with a 3rd horsepower motor and a top speed of 15 miles an hour, which is all you really need in Manhattan. It's all protected from the weather.
It's all you can do if you have a Ferrari in Manhattan. What are you going to do? Really. Yeah.
It's protected from the weather, as they say, and you don't have to worry about balancing like you have to with a two-wheeler.
Yeah.
And it's intended for use in bike lanes on roads as well as dedicated bike paths.
Yeah, and in Washington D.C., they'd be driving the thing on the sidewalks. Have you ever gone to Washington and noticed that? I think there must be an ordinance. The bikers all bike on the sidewalks. I was walking past the White House, and I came out onto a sidewalk from behind a sign, and I almost got run over by what is the special service guy, uniformed special service cop on a bike ride, on a bicycle. He was hot dogging, and I got to tell you, I chewed him out royally. His supervisor was there and was laughing at him.
Well, for what it's worth, this City Hue cost about $9,000.
Oh man, I remember when you could buy I remember my father buying a car. It was $2,700, and everybody was amazed that he'd spent that much money. Oh well.
That was a new car.
That was a new car. It was a 1959 Pontiac with its, station wagon.
The first car I bought was a used Volkswagen, and I paid $120 for it.
I bought a car once for $25. It was a Studebaker Lark, but unfortunately it had problems that I couldn't fix, so a month later I had to give it up. Oh, well. Okay.
Well, let's take a look at the Okeechobee Swamp.
The Okeechobee Swamp. We are up to Sunday, January 31st, and we have a picture of the Okeechobee Swamp. And because this says CC by SA 4.0, I know that this was one that was not with the article. It was one that I went and found because I needed something. And the Okeechobee Swamp is, in fact, a forested area in Georgia, but I don't think
both Georgia and Florida.
Yeah,
it's right on the border.
I meant in Georgia. Okeechebee's in Georgia. You're thinking of what is the name of the one in Florida? Okeechobee? I forget.
No, the Okeechobee Swamp's right on the border of.
That's right.
Maybe I got the wrong. Maybe I got the wrong.
No, you got it right. It's on the border of Georgia and Florida. This particular photograph was from Georgia.
Okay.
But it's not the land that we're talking about. It just happens to be a picture that I found of wooded area in Georgia. So what do you have for title? It's a nice picture.
Isaiah bought 11,000 acres of forest in Georgia to protect it from development. Well, good for them.
I think this is good, and I think that we've already seen things like this, but this was a good one. Inca Group, which owns and operates most IKEA stores, acquired forest land in southeastern Georgia to protect it and its diverse ecosystems from development. The company announced it had purchased 10,840 acres of land near Altamaha River Basin. And honestly, I don't know where the Altamaha River Basin is.
I don't either.
Yeah,
well,
I know.
From the article, before the European migration, the longleaf pine forest covered more than 90 million acres from southern Virginia to Florida and as far west as Texas. Yeah. Less than 4% of that forest is left.
It's sad, It really is.
It is.
It makes me think of the passenger pigeon, which went extinct. When I was in grade school, I was taught that the passenger pigeons were hunted to extinction. And later on, I found out that there were about 5 billion of them. And I thought, how could they possibly hunt that many birds out of existence? And then I found out two things, one of which was that the wings were being used as decorations on women's hats. And they were hunting them by dynamiting the trees they nested in.
No kidding.
They would nest in colonies. But even so, getting rid of 5 billion of them, how many ladies' hats are you going to decorate? And I looked at the nesting habits of the passenger pigeon, and it turned out, in order for them to build a nest, they have to feel comfortable that they're, like a mile and a half or more from the nearest clearing, because they want to know that they are not going to be attacked by, the nests are not going to be attacked by raccoons. And
I seem to remember reading that these passenger pigeons were so numerous that they would darken the sun.
They would blacken the sky. That's right, in their migrations. But they needed to be a mile and a half from the nearest clearing. And if you think about every railroad, every road, and you just, every farm, every whatever, you go down this list, and when you get to, you need to have places in the Ohio River Valley where they nested that are farther than 1.5 miles. They didn't have any place to nest.
They couldn't do it, yep.
They couldn't do it, and so it's hardly a surprise, And when I was a kid, there were still people around who remembered these birds because I'm ancient, and the people I knew at the time were ancient. But, that's what it was. Anyway, should we go on, Tom?
Yeah, we got a picture of a Renault Zoe.
Renault Zoe, and we have an article from CleanTechnica, and things are getting outrageous. What do you got?
Open the gates. 23% plug-in vehicle share in Europe.
Yeah. The overall automotive market's still in the red in December. It's down 4% year on year. But Europe's passenger plug-in vehicle market has had an historic growth, having registered a record 281,000 cars, which is up 264% year on year. Now you know why GM wants to have electric vehicles. It's because they are the future. The overall car market is down.
The article said that December's plug-in share shot to 23%, as we've already said. But it was compared to 2020, where it was only 11%.
Yeah. And,
1 year. Double.
1 year. Yeah. And so even with the overall market down, it was basically what you've got is a market in which there's two different things. One of them is badly depressed. The gas guzzling and diesel oil guzzling vehicle market is really depressed in Europe, really seriously depressed. And meanwhile, the electric vehicle market is going like gangbusters. And the people at GM know that, especially with Joe Biden in office, that's going to happen in the United States. It's the economics and the resistance to the economics that the Trump administration was putting up in order to help oil and gas and so forth. And all of a sudden GM, which was the one big company that went with the Trump administration's attempts to sue California, for example, because of its ideas of what the future of automotive industry would be. Here you see this is what is going on, and so it's hardly a surprise that GM would do that. I'm sorry, I'm rambling.
Well, it's the Wilmo or Wilmot, I don't know how you pronounce it, Energy Center. Where is that, do you know? And is that in Tucson?
In the Wilmot Energy Center is in Tucson. That's right. That's where it is. And that is our next item. This comes from the Arizona Daily Star, and I'll make a comment after we talk about this. What do you have for title, Tom?
Tucson Electric Power's biggest solar farm taking shape south of the city.
Yeah. The Wilmot Energy Center, a 100-megawatt PV project with 30 megawatts of linked battery storage, is currently under construction south of Tucson, which we were joking when we said Tucson. A spokesman for the developer, NextEra Energy Resources, said operations are scheduled to begin as early as April. Now, I wanted to include this. This is not really what I would call an extraordinary solar project. It's a big project.
The one we have in Brattleboro is 5 megawatts, so this is 100 megawatts.
This is 20 times as big as that.
Absolutely.
But, if you consider Brattleboro, Vermont, and the land around Tucson, yeah, it's easy to imagine going 20 times as big, and it's got this battery. But projects of this type, of this size, this magnitude, with the batteries, are happening in various places in the United States. And this is really only kind of representative of them. And the reason I chose this particular one to put in was because of the picture.
Okay, that's interesting. One of the things that will be happening, because it just makes too much sense, they're going to start developing plants, edible plants, that grow well in shade, and they're going to be building solar on top of these things.
Yes, absolutely. And
we've talked about that already.
We have, and the thing about New Mexico and the desert Southwest is that there are a lot of plants that grow better in the shade of the solar panels than they do with no solar panels around. So,
well, it isn't corn, but certainly it's lettuce.
Yeah, and these are things that there's agriculture with solar panels is going to become a very common thing, I think.
Oh, absolutely. It has. It just makes too much sense.
Yes, it does. Should we go on, Tom?
Yeah.
Okay, we have a picture now of a solar farm at the city of Loveland, and we have an item from Earth911.com.
Aha. What does that tell you, huh?
Well, what's the title, Tom?
Largest solar project in the U.S. underway in Texas.
Okay. Now, I want to
talk about a large solar project.
Yeah. Construction began recently in the Samson Solar Energy Center, the largest planned solar energy farm in the United States. Why would they say planned as opposed to what, unplanned? When completed, the solar farm will have 1,013 megawatts of generating capacity. The project is being developed by Invenergy and is expected to be completed in 2023. There's two things that I would say about this, one of which is this is only 1/10 as big as the one that we talked about earlier in the show that was in the Northern Territories of Australia.
Yeah.
The second thing is,
And they're putting up big ones in the United Arab Emirates that we talked about.
Yeah, they sure are. This thing is, as big as it is, the largest solar farm in the United States. It's still going to be completed by the end of the year after next. This is going to go up fast. And, if you compare it to a nuclear plant or anything like that, this is going up super fast. And
I had trouble with the word planned, by the way, and I think I figured out what they mean. It's already in the planning process.
Yes, this is the largest solar energy center being planned in the United States.
Exactly.
What that meant. Yeah, you got it, Tom. That's exactly
I was
right.
thinking the same thing. Well, how are they going to build one without planning it?
Yeah, right. These solar energy centers just happen accidentally once in a while. We have an unplanned solar energy center sprouting up at the landfill. What are we going to do?
Well,
okay.
Talking about Texas, it's a leader in renewable energy production in the U.S. due to its excellent solar and wind energy resources. Texas.
Yeah, and they've been slow on the solar and fast on the wind. And they have a lot of wind power in Texas. A lot of wind farms.
A lot of all this stuff in Texas.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything is big in Texas.
Let's move along here. We got a very interesting thing back in Singapore.
Yeah. Here we go. This is from CNN, and I'll bet you have a title for it, too.
Singapore is building a 42,000-home eco-smart city.
Yeah, Tengah will be the 24th new development built by the government of Singapore since the Second World War. But it's the first with centralized cooling, automated trash collection, and a car-free town center. Now, this is the part that really kind of struck me. A 328-foot wide corridor is safe passage area for wildlife, and some call the settlement a forest town. And the idea of having an area that big dedicated to just plants and animals and things like that, wildlife, in the middle of Singapore strikes me as being absolutely bizarre when you consider how crowded that is.
Looks like it's going to be a nice place to live. I mean, the roads, parking, and utilities are all underground.
Yeah.
So the ground level is reserved for pedestrians. It's a park.
Yes, it is. When I was in college, I read a book called Heart of Our Cities, and I forget the name of the author, but it really struck me because he was an architect, and he said that he was advocating for kind of community buildings where you had apartments or condominiums surrounded by green areas like this. And he compared two designs for the same piece of land for the same number of people. And one of them was, I think, quarter-acre houses, housing, lots with individual houses.
Traditional suburban construction.
Yeah, and the other one was, I think, 2-story tall buildings in which every unit was 2 stories tall. There was no unit that was exclusively on the ground floor or the second floor, with underground parking and hubs to various areas for transportation, and so forth and so forth. And in that same area, where they had 500 and some, maybe it was 2,000 homes on quarter-acre lots, he was able to have tennis courts, a 9-hole golf course, a certain amount of forest land, and so forth. And it really makes a huge difference. And
it's a much better model.
Oh yeah. Well, I guess you have more on this. We should probably go on.
No, we can move on here. We got a picture of a rocket called Stardust.
Yes, we do, and this is an interesting item. This came from the BBC.
Groundbreaking biofuel rocket could be Uber for space.
Yep, Stardust was hauled to its launch site in Maine by a pickup truck. When it lifted off, it was the first commercial launch of a rocket powered by bio-derived fuel. Sasha Derry, inventor of the biofuel and chief executive of Blue Shift Aerospace, says it can be sourced from farms around the world. Tom, I don't know if you were on the show the day he was here, but Sasha Derry actually was a guest on one of our specials.
I don't remember him.
I thought you were probably not at that show.
That would explain why I don't remember it.
Yeah, he had a place called Alt-E, which is operating in, I don't know, eastern Massachusetts, and he was the CEO of that, and he came out to be on the show at one point. And what they're doing here, well, you tell me what your takeaways on this are, and we'll go from there.
Well, the Stardust rocket is small, 20 feet long, weighs 500 pounds, and because it's cheap to fly and doesn't need the high-tech infrastructure of larger rockets, it will make space research accessible to more people.
That's what they're hoping to do. And another thing is there's a reason why they're launching this in Maine. The big places like the big rockets that go up from Florida and so forth, they put those rockets into the air from a place that is as close to the equator as they can get. And the reason is because the rotational velocity of the Earth helps them get them into space. Here,
is that so?
Here they're talking about using what's called a polar orbit, which means you're not going to get any help from that. You need to get into an orbit that goes over the poles.
Oh,
so
right.
The rotational velocity of the Earth is not going to help at all. And what they're planning on doing is using these rockets that have Sasha Derry's special biofuel and sending them off into space. And also he wants to make this what he calls the Uber of space, which means he wants to be able to have a rocket that's small enough that an organization or a company can come to him and say, we've got a 6-pound satellite that we want to put into orbit, and then Sasha Derry and his people at
here comes my pickup truck.
Yeah, here comes the pickup truck. Blue Shift Aerospace would put it up for them, and it would be cheaper than trying to put it up with a regular unit.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to take us to our next item, which is Tuesday, February 2nd. And,
it's a picture of somewhere in Massachusetts, but I'm not sure where.
Well, it's on an interstate highway, and I would say from the shadows that interstate highway is probably, it might be Route 91.
It could very well be. That could be Holyoke.
The shadows are coming from the left. The sun is on the left, rather. It could be Route 95 or one of those, but I think it would be more likely to be Route 91 because there's not a lot of stuff built up around it. Anyway, here is an item from WWLP, and by the way, WWLP is in Springfield. The house where I lived in New Hampshire, you could actually see the masts on Mount Tom from where I was living in New Hampshire. And WWLP had a sister station called WRLP, which people who are possibly as old as I am or a little younger might remember. That was it was just south on the mountain, just south of the Ashwillet Bridge in Ashwillet, New Hampshire, which is a village in Winchester, and that station was put there in order to broadcast to Greenfield and Keene and Brattleboro. So,
okay.
Yeah, there's a connection there. So what do you have for a title?
As Boston gets on board, community power compacts gain steam. This is an interesting development.
It is indeed. With the launch of Boston's new Community Choice electricity program this month, nearly half of all Massachusetts municipalities are now buying their electricity on behalf of their residents. The state's 168 municipal aggregation programs provide cheaper, greener power. We talked about this in relationship to Greenfield, which was one of the first of these.
They're doing it in Greenfield, right?
Yeah, and if you live in Greenfield, unless you ask specifically for more expensive dirty power, you're going to get automatically less expensive renewable power.
Well, the key word here is aggregation. The towns are getting together, and instead of each town trying to negotiate a power price for its town, 10, 20, 30 towns are getting together, and they got more clout.
That's right. Now, we have actually run out of time, and we have about 3
or 4 items left to go. This is from Tuesday.
We should finish them, I think. Anyway, yeah. Okay, so we've got an item from CleanTechnica, and this has an interesting picture of an excavator.
Well, you want to look at the back at the batteries that are back there. If the batteries weren't there, you'd have lead weights. No, seriously, you would.
I know you would. You remind me of a guy who bought a used crane when I was a kid, and in the back of the crane, to balance it, he found something like 30 great big cannonballs left over from the Civil War. Okay, you have a title on this article, Tom.
Yes, it's an excavator that you're looking at, and it's called Battery-Powered Construction Equipment. And this makes sense, too. Yeah.
Electric bus manufacturer Proterra is joining forces with Komatsu, which is Komatsu America, to develop a line of medium-sized electric excavators. The combination makes use of Komatsu's experience as a manufacturer of heavy equipment with Proterra's expertise in building batteries. And we need to move on, Tom, and I want to do this next one. I think you probably enjoyed this. Do you have more about the excavator?
Well, nothing that won't wait. Okay. Electrify everything is the mantra.
Yeah. Okay, our next item is from CleanTechnica, and that is a picture of a battery component.
Volkswagen begins battery recycling pilot project. This is an idea whose time has come as well.
Yeah. At Volkswagen, the quest for in-house battery recycling technology began more than a dozen years ago with a doctoral project. Components of the lithium-ion batteries can be recovered and reused to make new batteries rather than being incinerated or sent to landfills. Now, you're going to comment, I know, about the video.
I am?
You always comment about the videos. Did you watch the video on this?
I don't know if I did or not.
Well,
I don't think I did.
I'll comment on the video. I think you must have missed it. This article has a video with it, which shows the component that's right in front of you there getting eaten up by a machine that just shreds it.
No, I didn't see that.
Oh man, what a picture! It was an intriguing picture. You have more
what the article says is that lithium, manganese, nickel, and cobalt are costly components worth recovering.
Yes, they are. No question about it. We should go on. Our next item...
we get the last day coming up, Wednesday.
Yep, Wednesday, February 3rd, and this is from Thomas Net News.
What is that a picture of?
I think it's a picture of a sunset, Tom.
I think so.
What do you got for a title?
add more than 170 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity by 2024. Now you remember, gigawatts is bigawatts.
And there's 170 of them, which means what? You've got about 20 times as many as I can count. Newly released data from S&P Global Market Intelligence found the U.S. was on track to add 172.5 gigawatts of renewable energy through 2024. We're talking about just in the next 4 years, less than 4 years. The total is comprised of 96.8 gigawatts of solar power projects plus 75.7 gigawatts of wind power projects. Now you know why the oil and gas industry is in trouble. I mean, there it is right in front of you.
Oh, they don't make buggy whips anymore.
I guess not.
This growth outlook that they're talking about is despite the pandemic.
Yes, that's correct. It's like, and it sounded from the article like they expected the pandemic just to continue, but they're financial people. They're not medical people, so don't take that for granted. Okay,
we got a picture of a bus coming up.
Yes, we do.
The Flyer Excelsior.
Yes, that's right.
And
what
it's America's first autonomous bus.
There you go. This is from CleanTechnica. An American bus manufacturer, New Flyer, recently took the wraps off an all-new battery electric model. It's called the Excelsior AV. The thing that makes this particular bus special, however, is not what's under the Excelsior AV's hood. It's rather what's behind the steering wheel. Nothing.
There's a video there. There is a guy behind the steering wheel, but he's not doing a damn thing.
And in time, the drivers will probably disappear altogether. I think they're going to have drivers in these buses just to give people a sense of security.
For a while, I think that's going to be a good idea, and eventually they'll fade them out as people get more used to it.
Yep. We have one last picture here, and one last...
Well, this is an interesting picture.
You know, Tad Montgomery sent me an email about this, and he said those waves are photoshopped. And he's right. I looked at that, and I thought, photoshopped? Really? And then I realized those waves are photoshopped. And if you look carefully above the bow of that, or what appears to be the bow of that thing, you'll see that there are converging lines.
Exactly. I was looking at them.
Yeah, and I think what the person who was doing this was trying to do was to eliminate stuff that was in the background so that you would focus on this rather than boats and stuff that were out there. But this is from Renewable Energy Magazine, and I'll bet you have a title for us.
Sustainable Marine unveils a floating tidal energy platform.
Yes, Sustainable Marine is set to deliver the world's first floating tidal energy array in its next-generation platform in Nova Scotia. Construction on the 420-kilowatt PLAT-I Space 6.40. What in the world kind of name is that? Floating tidal energy platform has recently been completed, and it's launched in the Bay of Fundy. We've been watching stuff go into the Bay of Fundy for years. They all get torn apart. My bet is this one doesn't.
They're the highest tides on Earth, and they must really rush in and out.
Oh, yeah, they must. Anyway, Tom,
this platform is designed to deliver 9 megawatts to the Nova Scotia grid, which would power 3,000 homes.
Yeah.
It only requires 5 feet of water and is moored with a configuration allowing it to face into the tide flow. So it turns as the tide turns. That's
right. And I don't know, there's something going on with this thing that I don't understand. I think the propellers on the back of that get lowered into the water.
They have to. They have to.
Yeah, we are
at the end of our... They have to.
We are at the end of our show, Tom. We don't have any time left, so we're going to have to say goodbye. And I'm telling everybody to have a profoundly amusing week, and I'll bet you're standing up and waving your hand to let everybody know that they should have a profoundly amusing week.
Absolutely.
And so am I, everybody. Just imagine that Tom and I are waving, because I know that I am, and I'm sure that he is.
I'm waving.
We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
I'm not standing up, but I'm waving.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm about the same. Bye-bye.